What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movie Dive, and today we're going to be doing a live spoiler discussion of Gladiator 2. Every once in a while on this channel, we do a spoiler discussion of maybe a big movie that comes out. Last time we did one, I think, was Dune 2. We'll be kind of breaking down the movie, and at the end of the breakdown, we'll be doing a ranking of our top 5 Ridley Scott movies of all time. I'll put the timestamp down below if you want to jump to that. Once again, this is a spoiler review, so if you've not seen Gladiator 2, come back later. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Here we are back. This is once again Matthew Gosling. As I said before, this is a spoiler review, so do not forget, if you've seen Gladiator 2, you can stay. If you've not seen Gladiator 2, maybe come back after you have seen it. So we are going to kind of be going through the movie scene by scene, again, since we're doing spoilers. The first thing I will say is, I don't really know Matthew's thoughts yet. From my original review, we know that I did not like this movie very much. And ever since I saw Gladiator 2, I've liked it less and less as every day has gone by. It just happens when you think about a movie or remember certain scenes and certain stuff that happens. But I'm going to try to say some positive stuff about this movie during this review. I'm trying not to bash it the whole time. It might accidentally happen because it deserves it, in my opinion. So first, we'll start with Matthew. Just give me, your initial thoughts. You don't have to go deep in the detail into the scenes, but just tell me a little bit what your experience was with this movie.
So I watched it last night, and if you hate it almost a week after, I don't know where I'm going to end up, honestly, because I'm already coming at it from a low. It's going to be tough for me to spin positive. I feel like every deep dive or long discussion about a movie that we've done is because we've loved something so much. Yes. We just got to geek out about it. This is going to be like a pile on. This is like the Simpsons stop, he's already dead kind of gif, So I think that, one thing that you touched on in your initial review, which I didn't watch until I was prepping for this, was that if it had any other name, if it was just The Revenge of the Colosseum, and it wasn't Gladiator 2, it would have been a much more palatable movie. The fact that it's a continuation of a story that didn't need one, and then it's just a rehashing of that story, just makes it really difficult to enjoy. That said, I love his ambition. I love his I'm just going to go for it kind of attitude. And, he can never put together an ugly movie, in my opinion. And the production design is off the charts. And there's some moments in it which in a bubble are wow moments. But there's just so much fluff and so much frustration in this movie for me that I just had a really hard time enjoying it. So that's my initial thoughts. We're going to go so negative.
So, we will talk about it again to the scenes, but I remember there when I was in the movie theater and I was like, yeah, this is a cool scene. But for some reason in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't care what's happening at all. And then I rewatched what was worse is I rewatched the original Gladiator, and every single action scene in the original Gladiator, I'm like, dude, I'm so invested in every single second that happens. And I was thinking about last night, for example, in the original Gladiator, I feel like even though it might not be realistic, it still feels like everything that happens is realistic. When he's fighting the lions, was lions or tigers? It was tigers, right? When he was fighting the tigers, for example, he has to do different maneuvers that you might have to do against a tiger to not kill you. Little shots of how far the chains come out with the tigers. And this one, of course, they have monkeys. And he bites the monkey, and I'm like, dude, this monkey, the second he bit that monkey, they would rip this dude to shreds. And I'm like, it makes you lose credibility. It's a whole other thing. But so examples of when you watch the original and how precise and good stuff looks compared to the new movie. Now, again, like we said, Ridley is at an older age. So I feel like when I heard the cast of Gladiator 2, because I wasn't excited about Gladiator 2, but when I heard the cast, I was like, oh, this might be really good because they've got some good characters coming in. But then after watching it, I started thinking maybe he got actors that he knows are so legendary that he doesn't have to direct because he's old and he doesn't have to anymore put the work in to tell him what to do. Because people keep gaslighting themselves and saying Denzel Washington was good in this movie. I guess you could say he was good, but I feel like I was at an improv acting class watching someone have fun. Yeah, it's like if it's like the comedian down the street came and did improv acting, you're like, oh, that's how someone in the Roman days acts. And even if it's, I'm getting too ahead of myself here, but I did put all my notes into Chat GPT so I can give me my quick thoughts of it. This is conclusion. Correct. Conclusion. While Gladiator 2 delivers breathtaking visuals and compelling lead performance, a reliance on predictable tropes, frustrating twists, and heavy handed callbacks to the original leave it struggling to live up to the predecessor. Fans of the first film may appreciate the homage to Maximus' legacy, but the sequel feels like it's missing something. Maybe Hans Zimmer's iconic score? Question mark.
So it's impossible to like. Actually, I'm not going to say it's impossible to replace Hans Zimmer because we've seen it happen effectively. You know, when
Yes.
Nolan replaced
Yeah.
Zimmer with Ludwig Göransson. You know, we can see that it's possible to substitute out someone like Hans Zimmer. I don't think the score was as much of a roadblock for me as it was for you. Probably because I didn't get to see Hans Zimmer live, and that's a big part of it. And also, there was like moments of the score itself, which
yes, but we'll get through.
Nicholas Britell, who everyone knows him from doing the score for the Succession theme song and all that kind of stuff, but he did the score for a movie called The King with Timothée Chalamet and Robert Pattinson, and it was like this really medieval, like choral kind of just swelling score that was very menacing. And I felt like there was moments, especially in the first half an hour, where it had that kind of vibe to it. So I was like kind of into it. But then my problem with the score is actually how many throwback and callbacks to the original score. And we see that in the script. We see that in the visuals. It's just like, if you're going to make a sequel, like in, we can talk about Lego sequels a little bit and how it fits alongside the likes of, Top Gun Maverick. But if you're going to go for it and really just sort of make a zombie of an old classic, then have a bit more originality about yourself. And this just like was too tied to the first one, in my opinion. It wasn't daring enough to actually stand on its own 2 feet. Probably because the script wasn't there, and they just knew that they could just make a ton of money, and Ridley just wanted to do it, so he just decided to. But yeah, it was just the score was endemic of the larger problem of too safe, unnecessary, and half-assed.
I do think the score resembled what I felt about the movie for sure. Like every time I started getting bored out of nowhere, they're like, "Oh, but this little small snippet from Hans Zimmer's score." So there was that, and also, I mean, I don't know whose fault it is, but I mean, because Ridley Scott's last few films have not done well money wise. So like, I am also worried that he finally came to the studio. He's like, "This one will do well, Gladiator 2," and they're like, "Yeah, but don't forget to put those throwbacks in there. Like remember." We have to remember the old times. So, we've heard the stories. He's wanting to do Gladiator 2 for a long time. I mean, he's had some crazy ass ideas. I know you've heard about like the one with Maximus coming back.
The Nick Cage, not Nick Cage, Nick Cave script where he like comes back from hell and he's like resurrected into different time zones to kill Jesus and stuff.
It is it's definitely in that sense, but we can start breaking through kind of like how the scenes go for the movie. The first scene to me, it was fine. Like it was cool, but there's still like something missing to me. And I still, right when the first scene happens, it's just so predictable where I'm like, oh, that's his wife and she's going to die. Like it's just, so I don't feel anything compared to the original Gladiator when they do such a good, you don't even meet the wife and kid and you feel awful when the thing happens. They do such a good job of building up how he feels about home, how long he's been away from home. And this one, I get no sense of caring when the wife dies at the beginning of the movie. And it just seems way more like we said, ChatGPT-ish. But I do guess it was a cool scene, especially like I'm not gonna be able to ever create a scene like that, let alone when I'm 87. So yeah, did you think the opening was cool? I mean, compared, I guess, to the first film, or how'd you feel?
So Ridley used the same set from Kingdom of Heaven when they're defending Jerusalem. That's the same set that
it is.
Yeah,
that pisses me off more.
It's a little like kind of endemic of let's just use this that we've done before. This is where the problem is because you have such a stark contrast between how Lucius is introduced to how Maximus is introduced.
Yes.
It's just completely night and day. Like immediately you see, Maximus get off his horse and he's like joking with his men and he's like doing a whole like, if you wake up and you're surrounded by wheat fields, you're already in Elysium, all this kind of stuff. Like he's likable. You can buy him as a leader. You can buy him as a general. And then you get this guy who's just kind of talking at people rather than with them. And I'm a fan of Paul Mescal, but it's just really hard because the script and the way the film is structured is so often allowing these one-to-one comparisons, which every single time are just going to make Paul Mescal or whoever's on screen look much worse in comparison to the original. So
Yeah.
I was just like, do something completely different, like start it off completely different from the first movie. But if you're going to do it where it's the first, the battle scene and then the wife dies and then he's gone into slavery, those through lines just don't measure up anywhere close. So it was just really frustrating to see it start off on that note.
So I saw like a small comment of this. I didn't read the whole thing, but it kind of like brought to my attention what if they actually would have really tried to make a different style movie here, and how much more of an interesting movie would have been if Pedro Pascal was the main character. They follow him the whole time. It's someone who's a general in Rome. And he goes to the Colosseum and watches these battles, and the whole movie is about his plot of taking over Beavis and Butthead that we'll get to later. And so it's the whole movie follows him because he actually to me seems like a strong character. And then as he's watching the gladiator battles, you see someone starting to win, and that turns out to be Lucius. I feel like that angle would have been a lot better to follow him rather than follow Lucius through the same slave stuff, because it was just so hard to buy him as like a leader and as someone who he seemed like just like a cool, I guess, good fighter. Like if you were in the army with him, he seemed like, hey, yeah, that guy's cool to chill with. But like he also seemed like the dude who randomly stood up and like gave a speech, and you're just like, what is this guy talking about? Why is he trying to suck up to the teacher? Like that's how he felt to me.
Exactly. That's exactly how it felt. And it's not about his stature, because like, when there's scenes in the Colosseums where they're just about to get ready to fight and they're in the tunnels where, Maximus is like standing next to him and they like piss themselves. He's like surrounded by these giants that are like towering over him, and he still emanates this like confidence and menace. And Paul Mescal just like, maybe he's just like too soft looking for that, or like his character just feels very passive compared to what Maximus put on screen. But yeah, one positive note, I think that it did improve on the falling into slavery part, because that's always one part of the original that bothered me. It was like, so he passed out on his own property and then someone just stole weird. Him.
I actually noticed that the last time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's odd.
Yeah. So I think it does a better job of like depicting how, how Lucius became a slave, how the main character becomes a slave. So there you go. I gave a positive. How about that?
Yeah, but wouldn't it have been cooler if he wasn't like in the army or whatever he was? What if he escaped when he was younger? He was living on and then they came and they conquered also Africa. They took him as a slave, and he had no choice but to become a strong fighter and to learn that way. Of course, that would have taken probably a lot longer movie to build that up.
Sure, but it would have been better.
It just did not seem believable. None of it. And I mean, when he finally meets Denzel Washington's character, I know a lot of random people are praising it. I did not. Yes, you could use the word fun for his acting, but to me, like that still, his acting took me out of the movie. Character took me out of the movie. Like, what do you think about Denzel Washington's character?
So I get it. I somewhat agree. I think he's still one of the better parts because it was entertaining, to a degree. He's doing like a play on Alonzo from Training Day a little bit, where he's like, very like gregarious and very affectatious, which is like, it makes his screen presence stand out because everyone else around him is just like kind of meh. So at least there's like something that's bringing some entertainment, some depth to the screen. I thought it was good. I don't think he's like worthy of like, best supporting actor or whatever kind of nominations at all. But I think that he's kind of helped because everything else around him was a real struggle. Again, we'll get to Beavis and Butthead, and he has a lot of scenes with them. So he
Yeah.
ends up just wiping the screen with them, but he's still operating at like a really low percentage compared to what he's normally used to.
Yeah, I mean, his acting's always great. Denzel's always great. Yeah. It's just I feel like this particular movie, I'm trying to be more grounded in realism because it's Gladiator. Now I know people are like, oh,
I mean, the realism stuff kind of bothers me because like the first movie was never like historically accurate and all this kind of stuff.
No, not historically accurate, but you do believe it could happen.
Sure,
it was.
Yeah, like that is the last point of criticism for. I get there's tons of people like, oh, how'd they get the sharks into the Colosseum? That's fair criticism, but I mean, even if you just ignore the historical accuracy side of things, like it still just doesn't fit because you don't feel like it's plausible within the world it's created. Never mind like the real historical world. You know, it doesn't feel
That's
like
more to say.
Yeah,
in the world it's created.
Yeah.
And in the world it's created compared to the first one.
Yes.
It's just I feel like everything was so easy for him.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
In the first movie, they had to be so particular about Phoenix's character not figuring out what's going on because he's a loose cannon and all that. You could see why he'd be so enraged because he thought he would always become emperor, and his dad finally told him he wasn't. This one, everything just seems so. I mean, of
laid
course,
out for him.
Laid out for him, and suddenly everyone's like, "Yeah, we believe and trust this guy." As we get to talk about the battle fights, I mean, the first one everyone's talking about are the monkeys and the sharks. Now you're mentioning of like how do they get the sharks in there? I think that's so stupid. I was like, why can't you just only do water? There's no reason to add, and also it's not just sharks; it's great white sharks. I'm just like, not only great white sharks, but as I said, the great white sharks from Jaws 3D. Like they took them straight from Jaws 3D, the same graphic animators and everything. And then the monkey scene was just was the first introduction to like a big gladiator battle, and I was like, oh, this is what we're doing, because the biting of the arm, as I said before, it's like that thing in the reality we created in the first film, that monkey would destroy him. And then like he turns the other monkeys and they're like, oh, sorry, I see you, you're biting. And then they even like afterwards at the table like joke about it. I'm like, oh, this is that was the point where I was like, I don't know, this is starting to scare me. So I don't know what you thought about the monkeys and the Jawses.
I was audibly laughing throughout the baboon scene, just because it was just ridiculous. And like the bit that made me laugh the most was like after he'd bitten him, and the monkey's like trying to regain control or confidence or whatever, he screams at him, and then Lucius screams back, and I'm just like,
yes, like it's Planet of the Apes or something.
Exactly. I'm just like, what is this? I mean, it looked terrible. Like again, going to the CGI side of things, I don't know what's happened in the past 20 years, but
no,
CGI looks terrible, and it looks worse than it did in like Oliver Reed died in the first movie, and they had to like use CGI and piece him in places, and it looks so much better than this, and it's like 24 years later. It's crazy how bad it looks. So I was like so mad at that. I agree that the sharks, there's just too many animals. Like the rhino was kind of like more interesting.
Yeah, the rhino. But also someone riding on a rhino. If I thought if it was just a rhino, I don't know.
Maybe. I think it like keep it grounded, make it like horses and chariots like the first one if you're gonna do that. But like the sharks were just like literally jumping the shark. It was just keep it a naval battle. That was interesting enough. You've got a water-filled coliseum with boats. Why do you need sharks?
And that actually happened in real life.
Right, exactly. So yeah. Too many animals.
And then the way he beats the rhino is by throwing dirt up from the ground in the air. What? Like the rhino kicks up dirt all the time when he runs. You think that would stop him?
Yes.
But then they have the first twist of the movie, which isn't a twist because it's in the trailer, where you find out Lucius is actually Lucius. They like reveal it like it's an M. Night twist, even though you've seen it again in the trailer.
Don't watch trailers.
So we have that part happen. We go through once again the corruption of Rome, which happened in the first movie. which kind of bothered me because I feel like a huge theme of the first one at the end was, yes, Maximus died, but they're making a promise to start to make things for the better from him dying. This one is just like, yeah, none of that mattered because 20 years later, it's just still as bad. And we have to still do this all again. And somehow these two emperors, I guess we can finally talk about them now. These two emperors made it up there, and we don't know where they came from. We just know that they came from Spirit Halloween store and that they're overacting. Some people find them entertaining. I thought they were. Joseph Quinn's a great actor too, but I feel like they just, once again, jumped the shark on this. I don't know what you thought of the two emperors in this film.
I want to hit on the Lucius reveal first.
Yeah.
I think that it was such a bizarre choice to have him like the continuation of the final scene from the first movie, and it like has him going straight out the Colosseum with his mother, and she's like, "I'm sending you away right now." And like, first of all, no, she wouldn't send him away. She loves him too much, and she wants him around, even if it is a risk. You know, that's what the Praetorian Guard is there for. Like, that just wouldn't happen. And then another like laugh out loud bit for me in the cinema was when he like stabs the ground with a sword and picks up the gravel, and it's like what Maximus does. And Connie Nielsen's character is like, "Oh my goodness, it's my son." It's like the paternity task was like just picking up gravel, you know, that kind of stuff. I was just like, this is
zooming
just,
on her face.
Exactly. It was just so bad. Going to the twin emperors. So that is actually historically accurate. Gaeta and Caracalla were twin emperors. But again, it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. And this is all within, 16 years of the last, of Marcus Aurelius passing. So there was this huge moment of, yes, the power's been returned to the people and the Senate, and everything's going to, like the vision of Marcus Aurelius, which we're told about constantly throughout the movie. Like, Marcus Aurelius had a vision, a dream of Rome. Like, it says that, like, I don't know, 10 times in this movie. It's ridiculous. But that just sort of like dies overnight after this huge moment. It just feels completely out of whack. And I agree. Like, Joseph Quinn is a good actor. He was definitely the better of the two. The other dude with his monkey, another laugh out loud moment was when he announced the monkey was his like second in command.
I wasn't laughing. I was done.
That was just insane. So there was like something there that they could have used, and it did really feel like they were just doing like skits and impressions of Joaquin, you know, and again, just half-assed zombification of a better thing.
But the thing is, with this movie, I feel like there was a lot of moments where I was like, wait, because there's a lot of, like, first half of the movie, it was exactly like the first one. They're going the same plot. And the second half, I felt like it started going to 10 different plots at once. And there was some plot points where I was like, wait, why don't we just do this? Why aren't you just doing that the whole time? Like, that is so interesting. Like, when they started saying, like, people outside are going to riot, they're going to, overthrow. I was like, why are we not? And then I was like,
interesting.
This movie's going to be saved because we're going to have fucking a battle in Rome, like a civil war at the end. They didn't even give us that because they gave us.
We wanted Jan 6, like 1015 BC. You know, come on.
Yeah, but they gave us the Rocky 3 ending instead of whatever speech he gives to Russia, like, you will be friends and I will be free. But so then, and there was interesting stuff like Denzel's character when he kills one of the other emperors. But I wish they would have killed the monkey one.
I know, same.
Not Joseph Quinn's. Now we can talk about some of the other actors. Lucia, what's her name in real life?
Lucilla, yeah. Oh, Lucilla. Connie Nielsen.
Connie Nielsen. She didn't want to be in this movie.
No.
She was 100%. Like, her acting was not good. It was, she to me looked like they woke her up that morning and were like, hey, come to set. And she's like, of what movie? They're like, it doesn't matter. And we can jump to her death scene. Was worse than Han Solo's death scene. Like, it was the most forced down your throat. Like, you need to believe Denzel Washington character is bad. So here's this death scene. And she does this. I don't know. She looks like I'm lost for words. She looked like she was just purely not acting there. She gets shot by the arrow and she's like, and like does these weird noises. Then you have the other old guy who's in the first film who they randomly
Oh,
kill.
that
it
was
looks
so
like,
sad. Poor Derek Jacobi. He just gets like completely destroyed for absolutely no reason on screen. What's that about?
I guess, but like they made it so unclimactic when he died.
I know.
So it was just like, oh, he was very important like in the first movie. Also, he looks the same age.
This is a good time to like think about the side characters in general. So I totally agree. Lucilla's like involvement was like we've seen her act well in that role. We've seen what she can do. Like, you know, think about the "Am I not merciful" reaction scene. Think about, you know, busy little bee, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We've seen her act really well in those moments, and we're getting nothing here. Like absolutely nothing. It's really weird. I feel bad saying it because it's one of the worst like return performances that I've ever seen in a movie, which is
It's not
a real
good.
shame. It's a real shame. Like their relationship just never feels solidified. You know, he's like basically an angsty boy, and he's like he won't like talk to her properly when she visits him in his cell for the first time, and then like the next time they're talking to her, he's like, "I'll never let anyone hurt you," and it's just like a complete 180.
It's all.
Yeah,
You don't feel it at all.
You don't feel anything at all. But again, I think it comes to a side character and a plotting and dialogue issue, because you think about, you know, Djimon Hounsou's character, you think about all the gladiators that fought with Maximus, you think about Proximo, and all these side characters that fill this world with color and with like vibrancy and depth. And then you get this like random doctor dude who's like just pouring vinegar on his hands and like giving him like proverbs and this kind of stuff. And it just felt so weak in the supporting area. And again,
yeah, it's true.
It's just going to make everything else fall out, you know, from the background. And that means the main cast aren't being supported well, so they can't act well in those scenes. And it's just a vicious cycle at that point. I was just, the writing in general was just bad, but there was just zero care or thought putting into making those actors and those characters real and actually making them have any substance. And that included Lucilla, which is just a real shame because she was a great character in the first movie.
And how about this random poem out of nowhere that he kept reciting? And they're like, "Oh, I know that poem." And I'm like, "No, you don't. No one knows that poem. You just made this up for this movie." So what about that little thing that they just decided to throw in there?
I mean, it is a real poem from Homer. It's from a Greek philosopher, but like it feels like, why would you for a start put that around someone like some little kid's bedroom? Like what? Like did they not have like, you know, a football team that they could put on the wallpaper or something? I don't know. Well, we saw football was real. Like this is another thing we can talk about. They were playing football, so there must be football teams. Is there like Real Roma? Like was Lazio around at this point in time? You know, what they could have done something, but they just shoehorn in this weird quote in a boy's bedroom to make it like, oh, this is another reveal and a twist and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just. There's so many things. Like there's a dude reading a newspaper in a cafe like he's in Paris in freaking 1960s.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that.
And I think the thing that got me the most upset and most frustrated was having not just the many callback lines and not just the many callback lines to what echoes in life, what we do in life echoes in eternity, but having that be some sort of like secret memorial like over the shrine of Maximus's armor.
It's such a pet peeve of mine in movies, and they've been doing it more and more lately.
Why? And in English, like we saw that they wrote stuff in Latin, so why is it in English? I just don't get it.
I feel like it all started with Marvel. Like Marvel started doing this thing where like they made Captain's ass jokes, and I'm like, no one was there to hear this. Like, what do you? Now you're doing like fourth person jokes, like. So the same thing with this is like when they repeat these quotes that I'm like, no one. So yeah, that stuff is very frustrating. And then we can go to, you know, the tip of the iceberg here, which of course is the ending, where suddenly, of course, Denzel Washington character is like this big bad. He walks into this court. He like has the emperor's head. Like nothing happens to him, and then Paul Mescal's character he somehow gets out and he's like, you know what? I'm going to ride past all these soldiers. They're going to do nothing to me while I ride past them. And then we'll digress a little bit. So he sees the armor of Maximus. You already know the second he sees it, you're like, he's going to wear it at the end of the movie. Yep. This is very predictable.
Yeah.
And then he puts that armor on. Apparently it's Iron Man armor. So then he rides out at the end. This guy has been in the army fighting his whole life. He just won a bunch of battles, and now he's going against 70-year-old Denzel Washington, who apparently is the best fighter in the country, even though he's not been fighting. So he puts up a fight against him, which is just very irritating. He stabs him 15 times, like in the chest, but since he has, the Maximus God armor, nothing happens. And then he finally kills Denzel, and he does his like overacting death. So, and then he goes after that and does, before the battle happens, that's where he does give the speech, to everyone of like, hey, if you guys stop racism, this is going to be a better country. And if you guys hold hands, then, and of course it's like thousands upon thousands of soldiers. Remember I made a joke to my friend in the movie theater. I was like, like after the second row of soldiers are like, what did he just say? Like, fuck that. And they would have started fighting. You can't hear this dude. There's like people all the way in the back of the army. Like, yeah, he's right. I'm like, dude, this dude was just whispering and like everyone back there can hear him. Right. It's just little attention to detail things that show you that they really don't put the care into this movie. And it's more, So I know you probably didn't like the ending. I'm sure you didn't like the ending.
I literally wrote down literal plot armor. Because like this guy is just being stabbed, and we've seen those swords can go through the armor. We've seen them die that way, and he's like, do you know the kind of force that goes like on the point? Yes. That's a lot of force that would pierce through that kind of armor, and it's just like 20 times. I almost wanted to throw up. And then we've got Lucius doing Kendall Jenner's Diet Pepsi commercial at the end, and that just was like
that's a good one.
I think that it couldn't have gotten any worse. And then he goes back to the Colosseum and picks up the dirt and does, he says, "Speak to me, Father." Like it's like "Talk to me, Goose" from Maverick, And then it just ends. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean that's it? There's no resolution. There's no he's what? Yeah. It's just like had no meaning. Like what was the point? It was so
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, that being said, we decided to do something new for this, and we are each going to do 2 awards each for this movie that we wrote down. Speaking about, because kind of what you just said. So award-wise, if we had to give, we'll do that for the future too. So if we really like a movie, I'm sure there'll be good awards given out. These are kind of like satire awards. So my first award I give to this movie is Whose Blood Is That Award? Because we just spoke about it. He goes back to the Gladiator ring and he starts touching the wagon's blood, right? And he's like talking to his mom. And I'm like, I think 200 people just died here. Are you sure that's your mom's blood? Then he picks up the dirt and he's like, this is my dad's dirt. Like, it was so frustrating because I expected him to like go back and see his mom. No, he just starts touching random blood, which is probably not even his mom's blood. Who knows? But yeah, so Whose Blood Is That Award? It goes to Lucius. What is your first award?
I had to walk off screen for that. That was too funny. My my first award is the most unnecessary supporting animal role award, and it goes to Dondus.
Goes to who?
Dondus. That's the name of the monkey that the Emperor keeps around him.
Oh, of course. I don't know how you remember that name.
It's etched into my memory, and I will take it to my grave.
Nice.
That thing, why? And it was just, I don't know. There was a lot of nominees, every baboon, the one that got bit and then just walked away like a little bitch. You've got, the rhino that can't see through dirt. There's a lot of nominees in this very crowded category, but Dondus easily takes it. So congratulations, Dondus. You are the worst supporting animal actor.
Nice. Well, my next award goes to the Captain America Winter Soldier Award. That goes because I know you haven't seen the show. I have. In the final episode of Captain America Winter Soldier, right before the big battle and all the cops stop Anthony Mackie's Captain America, he decides just to give them a speech to make them stop fighting, even though it makes zero sense. So, of course, it's going to go to the final speech in this movie, as he just decides to give this guy who no one knows, decides to give a speech, who's so low on the rank. He's not even in the rank because he's a slave. and they all listen to this guy and like, you know what? Yeah, war's done. As you called it, a Pepsi commercial. That's a good one. So yeah, the Captain America Winter Soldier Award.
Love it. That's good. I'm gonna do the next award, which is the Lucilla Memorial Worst Parent in the World Award, and it goes to Lucilla.
Yeah.
Just like
she's
you just send your son away to like Africa. It's not like, they're in Rome. She could send him to like Milan or like Florence.
Africa, you're right. I didn't even think about that.
It's just like the furthest.
Just cut his hair.
Seriously, it's like, no, I want you on a different continent. And then doesn't even think to like look him up, or like she just like sees him in the Colosseum and it's like, oh, he picks up the dirt. That's my son, and I'm actually not going to do anything, and actually going to be involved in a plot which will threaten his life, even though that's why I sent him away. Lucilla, The Lucilla Memorial Worst Parent in the World Award goes to Lucilla.
Awesome. Well, yeah, congratulations on your awards. Now we can jump over to our final, ratings for the film. Always want to do movie reviews. I just give my final score, but I don't break it down kind of how I do in my own notes to kind of get to that score. But we're going to go through all of them. So I gave the movie a 54 out of 100. I think that's a little high now after a few days have gone by and after seeing the first movie. So we're going to go down with, I gave the story for it. I gave it a 4 out of 10. It's now a 3 out of 10. I gave the acting a 6 out of 10. Cinematography a 6 out of 10 because the cinematographer it's not like he didn't try. He tried. Mm-hmm. Writing dialogue I gave a 6 before for some reason. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Editing, I gave it a 6 before. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because the pacing. I said the pacing was a huge issue in this movie. Kind of had a biographic kind of pacing to it. Sound design, music, 5 out of 10. Ending was a 4 out of 10. That's wild. I gave it a 2 out of 10. The effectiveness is a 3 out of 10 because I didn't feel affected at all. True to its genre, I guess a 6 out of 10 because if it was a Rome movie that was on Apple Plus, it'd be like, oh yeah, that was interesting. So 6 out of 10. Rewatchability, I'm going to give it was a 6 out of 10. I don't know why. Why am I giving it such high scores? I give it now a 4 out of 10. So it went down from a 2.5 star out of 5 to a 2 star out of 5. So go ahead and give me your numbers here.
All right. So story, I've got a 4 out of 10. Acting, I've got a 6, though that's slipping down to a 5, honestly. Cinematography, I got a 5. Writing and dialogue, I got a 4. Editing, I got a 4. Sound design, music, I gave a 5. Ending, I gave 2. Effectiveness, I gave a 4. True to its genre, I gave a 7. So I'm giving it some.
I mean, it's not
incredible. It's like, congratulations, you were a sword and sandal movie and you stuck to it. So,
yeah,
like some decent fights. Like when it wasn't involving animals and there's fights, great, just do that. Rewatchability, I gave it a 5. If my math is correct, that takes it to a 43.
Now we can jump into our Ridley Scott's top 5 rankings. All right, so coming in at number 5, mine's going to be probably an unpopular opinion with a lot of people. I don't give a shit. Prometheus. I like this movie. I think it looks really cool. I think Ridley Scott really put a lot of effort into this one. Yes, some of the characters make stupid decisions, but the look of it is so awesome. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of depth in, the alien, and there's a lot of depth in the background of like where the story comes from. I do like Prometheus. Mm-hmm. I rewatch that from time to time. Again, unpopular opinions. People really dislike this movie, but that is my number 5 for Ridley Scott.
My number 5, Prometheus.
Yeah.
It shows that he can go back to an old text and breathe new life into it. It's not like a retelling of the original Alien story. It's not even like a continuation necessarily of what had happened to Sigourney Weaver's character. But it was just this like really interesting look at how it all started, where the origins of the xenomorph came from, David's involvement, and like the synthetics side of things with like what humanity has become. I think it was just a really good, solid sci-fi. It wasn't as horror as Alien, obviously, but it was a really good sci-fi continuation of that story. So I'm in agreement with you. I thought it was great. So that's my number 5.
Nice. So my number 4 is American Gangster. And just these movies to me are like decent. American Gangster to me, it's not close to, I think, the best mafia movie or gangster movie of all time. But I just think it's a good quality movie to watch. Honestly, like thinking about it now, I might even swap American Gangster and Prometheus. I think I do like Prometheus more than American Gangster. But yeah, that's an enjoyable one to watch. I haven't watched American Gangster in a while, but that is my number 4.
Nice. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 2 movies for my number 4. I'm going to do Thelma and Louise and The Last Duel. And I'm calling them the Men of Pigs duo because they essentially just tell the same story, which is interesting. Again, like, he returns to themes all the time. Thelma and Louise was 1991. What was The Last Duel, like 2021? So there's like 30 years difference. And it's all about like women's experience in men's relationships and how they're cast aside by society to like fend for themselves, essentially. Really interesting movies, especially on like a double feature watch. Love The Last Duel. I think that's his best like post-American Gangster movie by far.
My number 3 is going to go to Alien. This is the 3 films where I think are all great. Scott. So yeah, Alien is my number 3. Of course, everything's been said about this movie. One of the best horror films of all time. The franchise it created, massive. So that is my number 3.
My number 3 is Gladiator. So I feel like this is the culmination of Ridley's career as like a Hollywood director, and also like Hollywood in a nutshell, essentially, because you're getting this like epic scope from 50s and 60s, like Ben-Hur and like Spartacus, that kind of thing, and it's bringing it towards this modern audience with the pacing it has. And obviously, we hate Gladiator 2 so much because we love Gladiator 1 so much and how it just can't measure up. So I rewatched Gladiator before seeing Gladiator 2. Probably not a good idea because it was just so fresh in my head how freaking good this movie is. It's just like nonstop. There's like very little like fat to trim. Just one of the most entertaining movies ever made. So that's my number 3.
I'm glad that we've gone through 2 reviews and not done what every single reviewer has started their review with. And it's like, are you not entertained? And then the review starts. Yeah, my number 2 is Black Hawk Down. I always debate if this is my favorite war movie of all time. I think this is the only, like maybe the only time a director's been able to make like a modern American military war movie that's like realistic, but it's not over the top patriotic and has some really good themes in it. Really good actors, and I feel like it is an exhausting movie in a good way, where you feel the whole time how stuck these people are, like what a shit situation it is, and you realize like it's not even their fault that it's leaders above them that put them in this situation, and they have to really overcome some crazy stuff to survive. And a lot of Hans Zimmer, great score for this movie too, underrated score for Hans Zimmer in this film, and a lot of great actors in this movie too that come to be. So that's my number 2, Black Hawk Down.
Nice. My number 2 is Blade Runner. I think this and Alien really set the scene for what modern sci-fi would become, especially in its visual palette. I know there's a lot of like, the plot lines kind of go a bit slowly, and there's a little like, this wouldn't play out as well in a modern setting. But I think it's just still such a visual feast. The score by Vangelis is incredible. Harrison Ford at the height of his power as well. And Ridley, honestly, just early on just had a knack for understanding what a good project could become and how to handle it and create something insane. Like what he does on a shoestring budget compared to what he managed on Gladiator 2 is just like baffling how backwards it is in Hollywood sometimes. But Blade Runner, I think it's just pretty stunning. Just even if you don't enjoy the story, just to have on as a background, like it's sad to say that, but I love the story as well. So that's just me. But yeah, Blade Runner 2.
Yeah, Blade Runner for me is one of those examples of a terrific movie that's not for me. I'm not going to watch it, but like I see it and I'm like, this is a magnificent, well-made movie. So, I mean, we both know our number ones. Mine is obviously Gladiator. I think it's in my top 5 all-time films. It does mean like I saw it when I was a kid in Spain, and God, the movie in Spain was just like religious there. People would just watch. I think I saw it 8 times in theaters when it came out. It's such an incredible movie. My number 1, my top movie, Ridley Scott's remains Gladiator, and it's not even close to me. Number 1 by a lot.
My number 1 is Alien. Obviously, we talked about this at length on the horror podcast for Halloween special. I want to focus on just what Ridley does. There's so many moments, like in Jaws, and I know this gets compared to Jaws a lot, where there's moments of technical problems becoming the reason why something exceeds and has greatness. the shark in Jaws malfunctioning means they can't show it that much. And then it becomes this like specter of the movie. I feel like with the xenomorph, they didn't have the technology or the budget to really give it justice, which they do eventually do on like Aliens and Covenant and Prometheus. But I think just how he manipulates space and sound, and uses an incredible, again, production design, always been a Ridley staple. Like he's always known how to put together a good production. Yeah. I think it's just everything about it is why Ridley was seen as one of the best. And it's honestly, I know I'm upset about Gladiator 2, but he's 86. He started so long ago. It's just like it's remarkable what kind of filmography he was able to put together. And I think, it really kicked off with Alien in 79, and I don't think anything has topped it or could. So Alien's my number one.
I mean, that's our list right there for our top Ridley Scott movies. The next list that we will do is at the end of year rankings. We'll do that sometime between Christmas and New Year's. Guys, so we want to thank you for joining us. Hopefully you guys liked Gladiator 2. Obviously didn't, but some people might find it entertaining. Maybe I think honestly, like it is, maybe if you're like you haven't seen the original and you're a 13-year-old going to the movies, you'll find entertainment in it. Not for us. Thanks for joining us. And we will see you next time on The Movie Dive. Don't forget to subscribe.